Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the June 27th, 2023 Olivet City Council meeting here at the Olivet City Center. Madam Clerk, I'm not sure which one.
Oh, me tonight.
All righty.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Carl,
Here.
Councilmember Knox,
Here.
Chairman Pro Tem Waldman,
Here,
Mayor.
she is absent with excuse.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Next on the agenda is communications.
Mayor, Chairman, we have no written communications.
All right, thank you very much. Next, this is City Manager's report. Interim City Manager, Mr. Mann, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you as well. And tonight I have a short PowerPoint here. Let me get everything started. Oh, can't do that. I need to share so everyone can see. There. Righty. Good. Upcoming events. On the 29th, we have upcoming Stacy Starry Nights, 8:30 to 10:30 p.m. and it's weather dependent. So pay attention to social medias on whether that event will go on. Cloud cover and rain is the dependencies there. And then soccer registration closes June 30th coming up here. And then the city offices are closed next Tuesday, July 4th. And that also will put trash service behind by one day. From there, that also results in a canceled work session for the council. Coffee with the mayor then is on July 12th, and coffee with a cop Thursday, July 20th, and then on the from the website, the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant public hearing will be at the city council meeting on the 25th. So that rounds out the month as far as upcoming events. We had Olivet Night Out was last Tuesday and had a really good event. A couple pictures here. Let's move out of the way so we can see Assistant Chief Barry. Good. And then so it was a really good event. I suppose some of our council members will hopefully give it some lip service too. If we drive down Villa Avenue East, you'll see a new sidewalk from Charles Gate to Villa Park. And that's been a long time coming for anyone over there. So happy to have that done. And then today, over the last couple of days, anyone that lives over off of Ingle Road and any of the side streets there know that they have a new pavement there. And this was just finished today, I believe. Striping will soon to become coming there, but this was leveraged from funds from the Missouri American Water. They replaced the main on, if everyone remembers here, that we replaced the main. Missouri American Water replaces the main. When they replace a water main, they have to replace the pavement there. So Public Works Director Bruce McGregor saw an opportunity to leverage some of that. Instead of doing one lane, we'll do both. And we took the money from a Missouri American Water and then hired the contractor ourselves. We get better rates on some of the asphalt materials and maybe some of the other contractors, but so good leverage of that funding. We'll talk about this a little bit later with our budget and about how it affects our budget, because Missouri American Water is doing a lot of main replacements on throughout the city, and this will be something that we'll see happen on throughout the whole city. So it's good news, and thank you for Bruce for taking care of that and leveraging those funds from that were going to be spent anyway. I wanted to do a little GRG Centennial Trail update. It's parts are done, parts are not done. Where are we at with these kinds of things? This was brought up because the TAP grant, which is the middle section here, that goes through Indian Meadows Park, has been approved for it's under a conditional approval. It's really close to approval for letting of the bids as that trail goes from DM1 Road right here off Napoleon all the way through the back and connects to the new trail at Worcester Park. So that's the middle there. But as we go from east to west in the city, underneath the overpass at 170 at Olive, that work continues there. It should be getting close to being done there. And then negotiations continue on the railroad right away, which is off North Price Road. And then, like I just said, the TAP grant through Indian Meadows Park, we're going to see an agreement there. And that's the match of that is 100% paid by Great Rivers Greenway. And then Warson Park Trail, that's approaching 100% completion with, along with Five Oaks on Warson, which is the new community center. And then there's also, if we even extend past the borders of the city of Olivet, the 39 North sections of those trails of the Centennial Trail, they essentially turn into spurs. If you remember, in the last 30 days, 60 days, we've approved a preliminary engineering study with that project, and specifically for Olivet is exploring a entrance into the western part of Stacy Park, where the crosswalk is there, and then also crossing at Old Bonham in that area, and trying to get it through that area and into behind where St. Paul's Church and where the where the bank at Regions Bank is right there. So that's a bit of an update on that. If we need more information, I'm more than happy to go through, but we did again receive some preliminary approval from MoDOT in order to and conditional approval that would lead into a bid letting here in the next several months. Save the date for Turkey Trot. Registrations open on August 1st, so almost just a little over a month away. It's the 10th anniversary of the Turkey Trot. Upcoming meetings, we can see our listing there. A full schedule begins after some cancellations into the next week with July 4th week between the Planning Commission and the City Council work session, but then a regularly scheduled. Only other standout here is the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee is meeting July 13th, and this will be some of our first looks at now that all of the surveys are closed down and all of those results are being compiled, and really getting really close to a first draft look for everyone here, and then out into the community with an anticipation of a full approval by the end of this year. That's would conclude my report. So again, if anybody has any questions, more than happy to entertain those or do some research for next time.
Does anybody have any questions of the interim city manager?
No.
All right, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a different face here on our dais tonight.
Darn it.
Mr. Martin is flying back from England. And our prosecuting attorney, Mr. Ross Davis, is here for us tonight. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Good. I meant to do that. And then also reintroduce Jennifer Conrad, who is our deputy city clerk, to a new face in case somebody missed it from last time. Thank you, Missy.
Welcome. Okay, next is staff reports. Parks.
Yep.
PD.
Usually we don't have much inside of there. Anything of not real value, but of specific notary would go inside of that city manager report. They are there for reference. If I can, more than happy to go through them if you'd like. But
Does anybody want to go through them? I know I have some follow-ups I'll do with you. I did read them, but not necessary to have that conversation right now. All right, then we will move on to number 4, which is city council reports, and I will start to my right, Council Member Knox.
Yes, I attended Olivet Night Out as well as the other council members here. I thought it was a great event. There was a lot of participation, and I want to thank the police and fire and the city staff who were involved in that. They did a great job getting it organized, and we appreciated everything that was done. That's all I have.
Well, thank you very much. To my left, Council Member Clark.
I too attended the Olivet Night Out as well. I had a great time, and it reminds me what a beautiful city that we live in, and it was nice to be able to take part in that as well.
Council Member Carl.
I also took part in Olivet Night Out, but I just wanted to say that I got it taken down a peg because I realized it's not me everybody likes to see, because I used to ride around in the fire truck and I thought everybody was happy to see me. But it's not the case. I was riding in a car this year and everyone didn't rush over when I arrived. So anyway, I also, the Economic Development and Planning or Economic Development Commission meeting yesterday was canceled. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you very much. All right, and for myself, yes, Olivet Night Out was a huge success. I gonna encourage the fire trucks. You need to hit every single one of them. I heard that the fire truck didn't make it everywhere, so if we keep working on that, I know that's hard because we had 18 subdivisions this year participating, but it was a wonderful event. And again, kudos, and I ditto everything my peers have said. I also attended the park board meeting on behalf of the mayor. And, you know, a lot of good things are going on with the parks, and I'm really impressed with how they're preparing for what their goals are. The Parks report is in here from Beverly Tucker Knight. It's very informative and very expansive. The things that they are focusing on now, and some of the things that are really, I want to kind of recap, because I know the mayor typically does this, is within our youth sports, something that we haven't had in a while, is collaboration with the Ladue schools. We are using the elementary school fields for practice in all sports. Ladue reached out to Olivet for youth sports at the elementary grade level, and so that's a good thing. And our sports activities have been improving. Dog Park Volunteer Day, you know, that was the other day. I hope that was successful, but I do want to indicate that there would be no dog fees for the dog park for the rest of the year, is what they would like to bring to the council as consideration. So that could be coming to us for consideration. The first artwork has been framed and will be identifying the names of each of the rooms in the Olivet Community Center, Five Oaks. It's exciting how they're attaching names of trees and nature and identifying how that is connected to who and what we are as a city. A Veterans Plaza update, the water access is getting fixed. With regard to Five Oaks, there's going to be some soft openings. Staff is intended to move into the building in July and begin to doing their organizing. There is the hope to deal with some increase in training of staff in August. And there will begin to be some soft, small openings beginning in September 2023. The hard opening will be intended for the Harvest Festival, formerly known as the Boo Bash, but it is the Harvest Festival, and that should be a full opening at the community center at Five Oaks. There will be a shred clean out from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on October 20th, 2023. That will be at Stacy Park. They are looking at the possibility of, the Harvest Festival will be October 27th, 2023. And there's the potential of the Holy Festival taking place again in March of 2024, while they, at this time, begin to look at preparing for the potential cars and parking. It's becoming very, very successful here in Olivet. I also this week, yesterday, attended the Municipal League Planning Board meeting as an executive board member. And I just kind of want to go over a couple things that are Mr. Dolan shared with us with regards to our legislatures, not here locally, but at the state level. 2,323 bills were filed by our legislators. 58 bills passed. 17 were budget items, so they were automatic anyway. You deduct that. 41 were non-budget bills got passed. And we look forward to some similar efforts that didn't get passed by our legislators this fall. So we will continue to monitor that. We will create a legislative interest and concerns for the municipalities. And I will be sharing that as the municipal board continues to meet. We will begin to have monthly meetings real soon. And with that, I have, does anyone have any questions of me or my involvement with the municipal league?
quick question. You may not know the answer to this, but somebody might. Will we be zooming the meeting on the advisory committee meeting?
I don't
All of
know.
them have been. It gets really difficult with any kind of group interactions because you have to pick one of the groups that go through, but yes,
Yeah.
it's usually through Zoom.
Okay, thanks.
All right, let's go on to the next item. Monthly financial reports, Mr. Mann.
Thank you. So we should, yeah, open our screens here, see those, and I'll be share it for the Zoom members. Good. As we look through, this is a little bit of a, this month it becomes a little bit of an orphan because we're talking about our full budget. Later on tonight, I'll keep it really short, other than to say things that will keep the budget presentation shorter, which are the sales tax collections have been good. Revenues are above expectations, expenditures are below expectations. And that's the way we've done a lot of, we've been through most of the year, which is very fortunate. It makes the budgeting a little easier. The sharing of the 1% county collections did begin in June. We usually look at that chart and they've started pretty aggressively, and we'll expect that to continue through the rest of the year. Property tax collections now are exceeding in through May. And then utility tax collections are now just below, but very strong natural gas collections in April and into May, which comes into will come into a little bit of another bill that we're going to read for the second time tonight on maintaining those gross receipts taxes. In the remaining category, they are mixed, but that other income enjoyed an upward jolt in May due to the utility settlement from Charter, and then the city of Olivet's share of that was $309,000. So those kind of things all add up into revenue above expectations. Some of our on the expenditure side, we had budgeted full-time positions through the year. The hiring was a little slower than we had expected. And then some of our bigger projects are slower than expected. And one of the bigger factors there is, of course, the during budgeting time this time last year, we thought the community center would open in December, and we're still looking forward to that the next 60 days. So that leads us into, once again, lots of positive variances. I've always said I have lots of boring charts.
It's not a boring.
This one is usually pretty boring until the orange lines here you can see. And this is our Spire collections, our natural gas utility collections. And this is all it takes, folks, is in order to get put on the bump of a mention, if you're in the utility tax, is something like this. You can see a really strong February and a pretty good March. And then there's just this one tail in May right up here is all it takes to kind of make or break a year when it comes to utility taxes. Some of these sometimes just timing plays a big role in this. You can see that there's some upward pressure here. Now we all have utility bills, and they're all going up, and then 10% of those higher bills show up here at the city of Olivet, just like this. So the natural gas utility collection wasn't boring for a couple months, so it got included here. Other than that, this is the standard stuff. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, but we'll be talking about most of these categories and most of these things in a long-term or more chart format here in a couple minutes. So any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Anybody have any questions of the interim city manager?
No.
All right, thank you very much. We will move on to item number 6, which is hearing from citizens. Oops, sorry, hearing from citizens. I have 6 cards. And I will go in the order of the number of the cards. Ms. Luella Buckles, when you come up here, please make sure the mic is on and provide your name and your address. Thank you so much.
Hey, Lueda, got it.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Lueda Buckles. I live at 9638 Huron, and I'm here to find out what can be done concerning the park on Huron. This park was eventually, when I first moved here, it was a playground. Now it has turned into a rented pavilion park, and it is terrible. There are There was an event that happened on Saturday, and I'm quite sure you'll hear more from other residents. If you live on Huron, it's a nightmare there. It's really a nightmare. And especially when there's activities going on at this park. I guess it's where it is now. You can rent, no matter where you live, if you live all over the nation, you can rent this park. And ever since it started to be renting, it's horrible. It's really horrible. So I'm like Reagan when he told Gorbachev, move the park, get rid of the park. It's been 15 or 16 years. And if you live there, you have a hard time sleeping, a hard time moving and maneuvering with your vehicle. So that's what I'd like to say. As Reagan said to Gorbachev, move it, get rid of it from where it's located now. Thank you.
May I ask clarification? I am assuming you really meant move the pavilion, not move the park. Is that correct?
Yes, move the pavilion, because like I say, as long as it was a playground, there was no problem. And I've lived there since 1987. And it's really horrible. It is really horrible. And I'm quite sure you'll hear more from other residents, but you don't want to live on Huron now. That's all I got to say. You don't want to live on Huron.
Give me some examples, Ms. Buckles.
Okay, this past Saturday, and you'll hear more about it, it was rented out. The people that were there, they double park. The capacity, from what I was told by Beverly, is supposed to be 50. It was over 50. The music was so loud. And we have a resident that lives right next to the park. You'll hear about that. She's going through a lot of medical issues. And the music was so loud, we had a complaint against AV galvanizing. It was louder than that. And then when we called policemen, we had problems trying to get them to understand what was going on. Now, the event was supposed to be over at 8 o'clock. A lot of them didn't leave until almost 10. All right.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Card number 2 is Mr. Chris Osborne.
I think it's still on, isn't it? Can you hear me? Chris Osborne, I live at 15 Bond Hills. Been a while since I've talked to some of you, been a minute or two, I think. Anyway, got a couple things I wanted to raise. First, a thank you to the police for the work they're doing to control speed and traffic on Old Bonham. Hugely appreciated, and it's been noticed by residents around the area, so thank you very much. We need to do something with what's happening on Price Road, though. That's getting to be a real problem. I travel Price Road frequently from Bond Hills south to Delmar, and we come north on Price quite often. And it's routine. I saw it happen twice today at Delmar and Price. Cars just blow through stop signs. Don't even slow down. They just go. And that's a common occurrence there. It's a common occurrence at Old Bonham and Price. All four directions, cars blow through that. And that's really concerning because there's so many people that walk, jog, exercise. There's families that walk. There are children in the neighborhood. It's right there next to Logos School. It's really, it's getting to be a chronic problem. So I really ask you to take a look at that. And the other day we were walking the dogs north on Price to Villa, if that makes sense, right where the new sidewalk is, turning left to go down by that. And in short order, we saw two cars blow through that stop sign, one going south and one going north on Price. Didn't even slow down. They just blew through. So it's a chronic problem all over the area. I know, I realize that traffic has gotten kind of nutty, but with so many kids and so many people using these streets for exercise or recreation, whatever, it'd be really nice to kind of try to put a lid on this before something really tragic happens, because that's kind of where things could happen. I mean, it's kind of where things could be going. Couple other things that might be worth considering anecdotally, and that's all this is. It's just how it affects me. But the signs that you see when you're driving and it says you're going 18 miles an hour or 65, whatever it is. Yeah, the speed monitors. I think those work. It'd be great to try that on Price a little bit, and also on Dealman, which another place I notice a lot of fast traffic, I guess. And the last thing also has to do with Price Road, and that is with the new apartment building going in up here. If you step back and kind of think about it for a second, there really isn't much of a reason for the residents in that apartment complex to go south on Price. If they have kids, school-age kids are likely to be going to Old Bonham, so it's easy to get to going up Olive and out. There's no commercial properties south on Price. The first thing you get to really is the Reed School down in Ladue. It would be a really helpful thing, and our subdivision met last month and it was unanimous. Everybody thought this was a decent idea, would be to prohibit left-hand turns out of that apartment complex onto Price. In other words, if they're leaving on Price, force them to go north to Olive, and then they can go wherever they want on Olive, get to 170, whatever. But it'd be nice to keep the traffic under control a little bit going south on Price. We've already got enough problems with, sort of ugly driving is probably the fairest way to put it. It'd be nice to reduce the amount of traffic coming down there. That's really all I have.
Mr. Osborne, I know that we have that radar trailer, and I know in the budget for this next coming year, there's a couple more of those signs that you see around other communities that are just stationed on there. That we're getting some of those too. So
It's great to hear.
Yeah.
Good news. Yeah.
thank you. for
Yeah,
your
we'll get,
comments.
hopefully people pay attention to it.
Thank you for your eyes and your ears, Mr. Amanda. If you could follow up with our police chief with regard to the trailer. If it's not in use right now, could we get it on Price? Because I agree. I think seeing it, however, you see it, you brake, and then you get past it, and bad behavior is bad behavior. But I appreciate that. All right. Card number 3, Miss Wilhelmina Shackelford.
Hello, my name is Wilhelmina Shackelford. I live 9656 Huron. So you've already heard a portion of it. But I'm here to say, well, before I get on the park situation, something else just came up real quick. Can we get a sign at Olive and at Dillman saying only residential traffic? They do cut through from Olive because since the nightmare with the roads being repaired, they cut through so that they can avoid Dillman. So we get the traffic that comes from Olive to just cut through and make a quick trip, down to Dillman and vice versa. So that would be great. Signs that would say only residents. You know how they say
Dillman Road's about
no
through.
through
So
traffic,
Dillman Road's about through, so we shouldn't have that problem anymore.
but I'm just saying, we're a subdivision and that's a cut through. So signs on each area so we can avoid that. Now, let me get into the park. So I can agree with everything that she said, that the pavilion is probably not in the right place because of all of the issues with the parking and everything else. And the fact that no other park is situated like that and it's so closely, there's no space for somebody to have. If you rent that out to 50 people, that's a minimum for a small event, then that means 50 cars. The other thing is that this half a day rental, it was my understanding that it would be $200 a day to rent, but that's not happening because everybody that's been there has been on half day rentals, which means that they come over there for less, but they have way more than the minimum. So, we came up with some suggestions, but, I'm just going to take it and, my part is like probably get rid of it with the bathroom, and maybe not. I think that, I don't know if it was when the parks began to get work done, that the Parks Department started to refer people to come to Indian Meadows as a free park. And so that's when we started to get people coming over to the park and they had the issues with the trash or whatever was going on. And so it's not our responsibility to clean it, but they care about it. So they were cleaning the park up. So rather than, continue to do that, they thought coming up here would be a good idea to say, hey, what can we do to control this? Well, your answer was let's rent it out. But unfortunately, we've tried it both ways and that doesn't work to rent it out. It's just too small of an area and people are not going to be honest with what they're going to do. Yes, it was a band, it was a DJ, it was everything going on. To leave your house, I don't know what time I left, 12 o'clock or so, cars, and then you come back and it's still packed and you still try to do what you need to do. But then here you got all this loud music going on and a big party going on. And like she said, they didn't leave until we know 9:30 I still saw a flashlight over there. So I'm just gonna say the majority of them may have been gone, but it could have been right at 10 o'clock that they eventually left the park. And it's just not conducive for our community. Our kids are not able to use the park. That's every weekend it's been rented out. So that means that the neighborhood kids can't go over and use what we consider to be the playground, the area for the kids. So I'm hoping that can be reconsidered. So we don't have to relive what we lived 15 years ago. Does anybody remember? It wasn't nice. Yeah. So, you know, that's all. I just want the council to consider doing something about the park. And that's either the bathroom goes, the pavilion goes, or either it just becomes a park that's not rented out. Take it off of Google Maps so that people can't Google it and say, oh, here's a free pavilion. Take the pavilion off. You know, so that we don't have to deal with different people coming into our subdivision every single weekend or whenever, driving around looking at this park. So it's just brought a lot of traffic into the subdivision. So,
All right, thank you very much.
is my time up?
Yeah, a
'Cause I'll
little
keep
while
on
ago, I
talking now.
didn't stop you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, Miss Denise Williams.
Hello, everybody. My name is Denise Williams and I live at 9600 Huron. And I'm here also for, first thing, most of us live across the street from the park. I have, in our luck, we have, as you say, a really rich neighborhood. We have a lot of kids that we're trying to keep safe because we have a heavy amount of speeders, heavy amount. And it just, I can't sleep nights because I live in a driveway. I'm filthy, I'm dirty, but I had to come and say, I'm worried about our children for one, because the speeders are so bad. So we're dealing with that on a regular basis. So now you're renting out of the park where our kids play in, you renting out a park. We don't allow the kids to go over there when there are so many strangers. We go over there with them, but when there's a party, that's just not an option. So the kids don't understand why they can't go over there because there's so many strangers coming into the neighborhood on our block. I watched them Saturday. A lot of them passed the park, went up to the top of the hill, turned back around, came down. I don't know what they're going up the block to look at and come back down. I mean, we all have nice homes. We all have nice cars. We're inviting two different sets of people in, strangers, and they're flying up the street. They don't know where they're going. Our kids are on their bikes. This is their street. And you all have put them in more danger than I could have ever imagined on my block. You all have a new fire truck. It can't get down the street. If you would have seen it Saturday, if any of us would have had a fire, we would have been up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. That's where you all have put us. In a really, really, really bad situation. It's sad. It's really sad. And these strangers that you're bringing in, you guys watch the news every day. You read the news on your phone. You know what's going on. And then our little Sleepy Hollow is inviting all these people from who knows where. Some of them are nice, good people. I'm not knocking that. But a lot of them aren't. And there is another huge can of worms that now we got to deal with because they're over there in that park till 9:30. And our kids are out there playing and we don't know who's predator around the place. They think it's okay, 6, 7-year-olds okay to go into the bathroom, but it's a whole group of people over there who's gonna get them hemmed up in the bathrooms. Am I gonna come back and blame all of you all for that? That wouldn't be fair to you, but it would be fair to me because now you done put all our kids in a bad situation. More. Here we are trying to keep them safe and sound and gave them a nice little park. Here we are inviting all these extra people in, and that is ridiculously sad. And I really hope and pray that you guys, we get together and figure this out, because I cannot sleep nights until we do.
Thank you very much. Dennis Littleton.
Good evening. My name is Dennis. I live at 9639 Huron. A lot of you already know me. I moved here right about a year before the pavilion was put up. I had no clue that this was going to be put up initially. We went through this a long time ago, but the structure is too close to our house. This past event, they had a generator out there with loud music going. I was told when they initially put it up, it was supposed to be a small pavilion for no more than 25 people. There were over 60 people over there. Loud music, they were double parked in the cul-de-sac, which is supposed to be ticketed. No police officers gave out tickets. But when I park the wrong way right in front of my house, I get a ticket. So it doesn't make sense to me. On top of that, you got these people who are walking across my yard to their cars, which I do not like. Now, I would be wrong if I go out there and start yelling and screaming and start chasing people out my yard and starting a fight. I don't want to do that. The bottom line is that structure was originally never supposed to be in that part of the park. It was supposed to be at the big park at the other end. You guys ended up just at the last minute putting it down and cramming everything in. It's just too tight. It's too small of an area. On top of that, I mean, there's nowhere for anybody to park. Other than that, I mean, from my standpoint, I would like it gone and back to just being a neighborhood park for the kids to play. Because like I said, I don't allow my kids to go over there when there's a big event going on. It's too hard to keep up with. On a separate note, the industrial area where those two racing, whatever, I don't know, some auto details. They have been drag racing up and down there. We've been calling police constantly to deal with this. I don't think the police should have to deal with this type of stuff, but they have to because that's the only people we can call. But I would propose that you put speed bumps back there to prevent them from speeding. And they just racing up and down. I don't know why they were allowing somebody to put in the mechanic shop that's allowing them to put in these loud racing engines and mufflers that are super loud, because it was ridiculous. I mean, it's always ongoing, but then they have these events every once in a while, the big racetrack, and then just racing up and down. By the time you call the police, they're already gone and they stop. So, I mean, I propose it put speed bumps back there, and I was told originally there was never supposed to be generators and any loud music. And the other thing is, originally there were only 4 picnic tables. And ever since they had their first National Night Out, they brought 6 or 7 picnic tables over there for that event, and they were originally supposed to go back, but there's still 6 or 7 picnic tables over there. It should only be 4 there.
Mr. Littleton, you live right next door. If you have anything else you want to say, the floor is yours right now.
Well,
Forget
like
the
I said,
timer.
as you know, my wife is going through some illness, and we've been dealing with this for the last 2 years. She is up at night struggling with this. She gets upset with it. This noise, the loud music, it just drives her crazy. It's really hard for her to be able to deal with everything that's going on. And if I would have known that this pavilion was going to be there when I bought the house, I would have never bought the house at all. That's just flat out. Never would have bought it. But when I bought that house, it was just a regular playground. None of that was there. It was old equipment. And the next thing you know, they're pouring concrete and putting up this big structure. And it has no place to be there at all. That's it.
Mr. Littleton, let me tell you something. if I were you, I would be pissed too. Okay, and I'm gonna say this in front of the council also. I hate that this is happening to you guys. Okay, I know exactly how you feel. And I know what you really want to say, but you gotta hold it back just a little bit. Believe me, I understand the struggle that we're having. I grew up off of Villa and I played at Villa Park. They used to have a basketball court up there where the local kids could play basketball. And we had some kids from outside of the community that kept coming up there playing basketball. They started getting rough with some of the neighborhood kids. They got loud. They left trash. And it all but ran the neighborhood kids out of the park. You know how they fixed it? They got rid of the backboards. That solved the problem. They stopped coming to that park, and we were able to come back to our park and play. I support you in getting rid of that pavilion. I think it's the right thing to do. I don't know what I may have to do or what I need to do, but I support it. It makes me angry just to listen to what you guys are going through. Your home is supposed to be your palace. I couldn't imagine what it must be like for you, sir, to try to get some peace and quiet and somebody's walking through your yard, throwing God knows what into your grass, cursing, drinking, or doing whatever else they might be doing. You don't know these people from a can of paint. And that brings down the value of your home because you have to deal with that. Plus you have a sick wife. You're in my prayers for that.
Thank you.
You know, but beyond prayers, I hope that we can come together in some sort of resolution to fix this for you. But I want all y'all to know it bothers me too. I don't live there, but believe me, I get it. I get it. And I'll do whatever I can to help you. And that's on record. This is being recorded. So I'm really sorry that this is happening to you. And you have my support, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Alicia Ford.
Good evening. My name's Felicia Ford. I live at 9416 Grandview Drive. And I also want to echo what has been said here about the park and the pavilion being rented in Indian Meadows. As a parent of children that are special needs, it is incredibly not safe because they don't recognize dangers the way other children do. And I do not allow them to go to that park, especially when there's a large gathering of other families, because they won't recognize danger. And I want you to think, children like cakes, they like cookies, they like candy. If anybody offered any of my children something, they would probably take it and they'd disappear. That's incredibly frightening for me. It's incredibly frightening for the other families in the neighborhood with children, small children, and special needs children. So as what has been said here, the speeding is ridiculous. We have a blind curve closer to my house. And so when my children ride their bikes, if I'm not walking to make sure, they could be hit at any point. And then when you get closer to the park, some of the cars really do fly up and down through there. And when these events are happening, the music is incredibly loud. I personally didn't know it till this weekend. I had never been down there and heard just how loud it was. And that was disturbing to me. It was like the generator was incredibly loud, but then so you have to have the music louder because you have a generator. And that was, to me, I thought of the neighbors that live close by, closer than I do. And that does affect their quiet enjoyment of their homes. It just does. And if you're in poor health, if you're older, no one wants to stay up late at night listening to who knows what kind of music, because we don't choose the music, right? Their music was fine, but what about the people that play music with vulgar lyrics? You know, the community is subjected to that, and that's unfair. We're not asking those people to be there, and they don't respect the people that live there. So as everyone has already said, I think the pavilion should be moved. I think it should not be rented for the safety of our children and our residents. And just to give us back our community so that we are safe, because we're not safe not knowing who's coming in and who's leaving. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra Handy. Hardy, I'm sorry.
My name is Sandra Hardy. I live 9632 Huron, right across the street from the park. Saturday was a pretty rough day for us because we were not expecting that many people in the park at one time. We don't want people to feel unwelcome to be in the park, but I don't even think those people know what the rules were anyway. It's not advertised right as far as I'm concerned. It's like, come to this big, beautiful park with this beautiful pavilion. So I would probably rent that too, but it's a problem for us. And what if 100 people showed up in this little bitty subdivision? It's not fair. And especially for Dennis and Jenny, I feel bad for her because she's sick. And it hurts me that she has to suffer with that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna do what my fellow brother does over here every once in a while. Say I agree with you. Now, I live in Indian Meadows. I'm a trustee of Indian Meadows. I have a history with regard to this project and this process. I've questioned this with our parks director, with our city manager, with our staff. We don't have parking for our Indian Meadows Park. We don't. It ends up on the street. I got texts of the photographs of what Saturday night looked like. I also got texts that my kids aren't going to be there because they're out there smoking pot. And we don't want our kids around that. So I'm going to ask the interim city manager, I want information. I want to know who rented, what are we doing? And again, I'm going to ask, now that I have another person's ear, it is $75,000 according to our purple sheet of our park plan to move that pavilion. That was what was quoted 2 years ago. I agree. I don't think that pavilion should be there. It should be in the more open area of our park where there could be potential future. But it is right next to the playground area where little children play. And then you got all this noise, you got all these adults, you got this pot smoking, you got the liquor drinking, and you are pushing the children away from the area of the park that should be theirs to be able to play. So I realize what our staff have said, but I realize what the council gets to say too. And this is something that we need to look at. We need to look at the potential of moving that pavilion. That's where I stand. Mayor is the liaison to that board. She's not here tonight. I'm sure she will listen to this. But at the end of the day, yes, not the bathroom. Bathroom should not be moved. Kids need to go potty. But the pavilion, I want it out too.
Amen. That park is for you.
Well, it is a city park, but again, there are limits to what's
Yeah,
what.
but we didn't build it for people outside of Olivet. We built it for them.
No, and I even suggested, let's buy a particular home that was on for sale, tear that down, turn that into a parking lot on the other end of where the park would be. And that was not something that leadership and wanted to do. And that it still creates the problem of the lack of the ability to park. 50 people, even the 50 people, you've got at least 25 cars. I know on Huron, that would end up taking the cars practically halfway down past Pioneer, almost to Yucca. And it's just not the right place to have what we think we should have because it's a city park.
You bet.
We
I can-
need
I
more
can-
mindfulness.
We can put some information together. If we remember, we were here talking about the rentals as a way to make sure we knew who was here. With any legislation, sometimes it has unintended consequences, and maybe that's where we're at. So we'll get a plan of action together. Let me collect some information. I did receive information from I would say the residents that are here, most of you have called, the police chief did let me know over the weekend of the issues. So you did what we've asked you to do, you know, and that's not create a scene yourself. But if it's not getting that reaction isn't the one we need, then we need to go further. So we'll discuss that.
And as I said to previous speakers, thank you for your ears, thank you for your eyes, and thank you for letting us know. All right, there's no more cards, ladies and gentlemen. We will move on to bill number 3004, Madam Clerk.
Bill number 3004, an ordinance making appropriations for current expenses of the city government of the city of Olivet for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023, adopting a certain budget and adopting a certain salary schedule. Second reading and public hearing.
All right, Mr. Mann, I am going to close the regular meeting and we're going to go into the public hearing. If you would like to begin to present, sir.
You bet. Thank you very much for the introduction, and we'll get started here. As far as our FY24 budget, so it's been a lengthy process, a little bit of a difficult one to get. There's a lot going on as far as with the council members, with the hiring, the city manager hiring process is time consuming, coincided with a lot of this budget process. So thank you for your ears when we can get them. And so here we are with our three primary documents for our analysis. Again, we're with the annual budget tonight. We're going to also talk about the capital improvement plan, which is the two at the bottom. June 30 is our year end. And then next week, we'll begin the process of the full process of getting the completion of the beginning and completion of our annual comprehensive financial report, which is also known as the audited financial statement. So all happens at June 30 through July 1. And then right now, if anybody's interested in looking at it, you can go to the city website, olivetmo.com/151, and then click on annual budget, and you'll see what the real meat and potatoes of what the council's seen many times over, but what makes up the actual budget itself. The budget book will be available at the end of August. A couple years ago, we had not had it ready during the budget, the adoption of the budget ordinance, and that'll be the same this year. But so that will be available by the end of August, and that's the big pretty book. Background on the actual budget award itself, it's one of the three parts of the from the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. The budget awards themselves create a book or a document that's a financial plan and operations guide and a good communications device. And it makes it to do those three things, it makes it kind of lengthy, but it does include a lot of information. Any other communities that create a similar document, it makes them very comparable. So that we expect to retain that for FY24. How do we read this? This is our big A1 sheet. I'll go over it real quick. But what it tells us, and it tells a council member, it tells anyone that looks at it really quickly. It's been fairly consistent over the last 9 or 10 budgets. First on the left there, we have our fund balance, which is like the savings account or retained earnings in a private entity. Through the end of this year, FY23, here's our projected excess or deficit, and that informs on that same fund balance through FY23. Tonight, we're here to approve expenditures, which is the middle column right in here. And that's creates the appropriations by that same budget bill. The finance director then, or myself, is certifies that revenues are there in fund balance in order to cover those expenditures. But what we look at for a lot of things is the fund balance there at the end of 24. So that's informs us of a couple things. One, do we have enough money to pay our bills this year? And then for the city of Olivet, we have a reserve policy that we have to look at. And that looks 5 years out. So it informs on a lot of that. The up and down here, all the words, these are the individual funds that the city creates as the legal divisions of the money itself. Most notably is the general fund there at the top, and that's where the operations, most of the operations of the city, where they reside. And you can see that at $10.9 million is what the general fund expenditures are for FY24. Inside of there, you'll also see some special revenue funds, dedicated sales taxes, dedicated property taxes, other assessments, collections. And then capital improvement, which is houses a lot or all of our capital expenditures. And the other notable one here is this debt service and construction fund, which houses all of the debt proceeds and then all of the spending of that in for the purpose of those debt proceeds, which right now are the parks improvements, which are substantially mostly complete, but then also Warson Park and the Five Oaks on Warson Community Center. So that's some finalization there. Overall, what you'd see here is fairly steady fund balances through time of from this left column all the way through the right. And then that's because of some of these projected excess deficits in FY24 being fairly stable. The grants is a big spend down because of the spending of the ARPA money, the allocation for the city of Olivet, and then also the spend down in that debt servicing construction for the completion of the Warson Park improvements. So from there, we go to page 1 to page 2. Page 1 here in the foreground, they follow back down, and the $10.9 million there in the general fund has further detail. And if we were to look underneath of there, I'll back up just 2. These revenues here on the left is the sales taxes, and then the expenditures in these departments. These are the same ones we look at in our monthly financial reporting. We can see for 23 where we end up budget versus actual, and then the proposals from the department heads into the final city manager approved columns there. And then those are also from there, we'll go from the page 2, which stays the same. And then each one of these departments has individual line items that we budget for on that line item basis. You can see on the left here, these are the individual accounts from salaries all the way down to gas and oil books, you know, the training, those kinds of things. Now, these are the same numbers in the same order in the same departments that we see in our monthly financial reporting. So that's our monitoring functions for the council to take a look at. Inside of here, and this is run more by statutory state law, is the FY22 is actual, the FY23 budget, and then the FY24 department. And in this case, there's no department request because it houses the city manager and 1 staff member's salaries. There's only 1 request in that. But you can see the overtime where we've been. From there, how did we get here? Like I said before, this is a lengthy process. It seems kind of quick tonight if you watch it in just a couple hours that you have to watch a meeting. It seems quick and maybe a little too easy, but there's the meetings here for March 22nd, April 11th, May 9th, May 23rd, and then June 6th is the work session that was all discussed by the council members. Various parts between capital, special kind of things that are happening. It might include payroll, salary increases, those kinds of things. But there's also some key landmarks dictated by our city charter, and then one of the reasons we're here tonight. But like I said, it might seem smooth, but lots of time goes into informing and then development of this. And that's why most of the council members glaze over already, because it's already 4 months old. This budget cycle has been a little bit different in that not a lot has changed operationally for the city from last year. We've seen those variances, but not much has changed a little bit. And we can see here with our budget expenditures, personnel take up roughly 3/4 of all the dollars that we spend. Contractual services falls under lots of other things, but membership dues and those kinds of things. Just the regular supplies, if you want to call it, that a city spends, that falls into a lot of that contractual supplies. But again, 3/4 or 75 cents out of every dollar that the city spends is on its people. On top of that, roughly half, and this has changed this year because of the opening of the community center, is over history. This public safety, the one on the red on the left there, has been right at 50%, sometimes a little over, sometimes a little under, depends on where we are with some of our capital outlays here. The capital outlays actually includes some of the police and fire spends as well. But this purple wedge got quite a bit bigger this year with the opening of the community center. And so the real story here is overtime, and I've said this many times. 75% of 75 cents out of every dollar is in a person. And then about half of that is in public safety. So those aren't things that you change very quickly, very easily. And so those create special special considerations when your core services can't change really that quickly and you come into some sort of revenue problem. And so that's where the development of the revenue, the reserve policy was there, and how we, the monitoring function becomes very careful, and it need to identify problems with your revenue way quicker than you would in maybe some other places or some other kind of industries. Over time, where we looked at the stacking charts here are bars are the revenues. And then they're cut up into these four, and then it comes into a little 5 with the transfers, that green. But the roughly 4 different categories have historically over the last 190 something years has been, I shouldn't say that, over the last 30 or 40 years have been roughly 25% of each one of these. And this chart does a really good job of illustrating the fact that it's not 25% any longer. The sales taxes have taken over as in this chart roughly about 43%, and we'll bring up the pie chart here in a second. And then you can see how the expenditures there underneath, those are the different departments that live underneath here: police and fire at the bottom, public works, administrative, have maintained for the most part their ratios that they've always had over the same time period. Do they grow when our expenditure, or sorry, our revenues grow? They sure have. Most notably, probably here, you can see the expansion of our planning and community development department, and our now just in the last couple of years, this third one down, this the parks department, and that is because of the opening of the new community center. And this is also a little bit of a result in the planning department of a result of developments that are going on. Just the need for more folks to do the things that need to happen in order to keep projects moving. So the other side of that is that blue, the very top, and that's debt service, and then capital expenditures. And those are on top because usually they're the ones that get squeezed out as easy ways to make budgets work. And you can see that that's expanded and waxed and waned over time, and then now is fairly high. So that the pie chart I talked about a second ago, we can see sales taxes at 43%. This number was quite a bit higher the last 2 years ago, before the opening or the anticipated opening of the community center. Now it's at 23% in that remainder column, and that is kind of positioned us a little bit, and we might be taking a little bit different look at this during our budgeting. So those one of the themes here over the last couple of years is expanding operations and those budgets accordingly. Over the last 3 years, we had a 14% increase in our full-time equivalents, and that's a full-time equivalent. If we a person that works full-time is generally thought of to work 2,080 hours a year, which is 52 weeks times 40. And so if you the expansion of the community center, it involves a lot of part-time positions. And with that, you don't just get how many people are we in, it's how many full-time equivalents. So that's increased 14%. If we look at like number of people that work for us in counts and bodies, it would be probably close to 30 or 40% increase. But that's not a true look at your budgets of like your average cost per employee and those kinds of things. So we the accounting side, and a general way to look at it is full-time equivalents, and that's a baseline kind of way to look, and it's up 14%. Again, like I said, 74% of those costs are personnel, and then over 50% are core. And I would call the core services, can the finance department get smaller? Yeah, but you can only go so small. Can the public works department get smaller? Probably, but you only get, before you cut into some of those core services, you can only go so much smaller. And that's why public safety is at 46%, but I would call the core service probably more over 50%. So on top of that, the reliance on these volatile revenues, and I would call sales taxes volatile. And what I mean by that is they're subject to quick swings, and there's not much we can do about them. Is a community center membership rates and fees and walk-in fees and stuff, is that volatile? Yeah, but I would say that we probably have way more control over what we do about getting people inside the doors and how to bring money in at a community center or at registrations for soccer than we would ever have in getting someone to go buy something at a store at Price Crossing. We can't force people to do that. We don't have that much control over the prices of things and what, yeah. The remainder revenue is now up to 27% of those general fund revenues. And again, if we look at history, 25, 25, 25 over those four categories, and here we are again with that remainder. But what's giving? And here we can see this over time, the sales taxes in the red, and then the remainder category in the purple that is now jumped up. If we remember last year, we had budgeted but it was only half of a year of revenue in the new community center. So it wasn't quite as pronounced as we are here with expecting to open in the next 60 days. So I bring this chart up because over time, this chart had this red line right here had a huge tail like this. And that goes back to 2017, 2018, when the sales tax had that dramatic jump. And after that dramatic jump, we weren't sure the staying power of it. We weren't for sure it was ever going to stay within the city of Olivet, but it has. And so now that red line is stabilized, and in response, you as the council in February 23 adopted a new reserve policy that backed down the 5-year outlook from 75% of expenditures to 50%. And that's really the reason why here. Now is this tail right here, like I said, has much more to do with something we can be accountable for and in control of, as far as making sure the revenue occurs compared to a property tax or sales tax, which takes years of development efforts in order to something to come to fruition. So there's that. And then that remainder category itself, where does it come from? And this is all the different kind of, again, usually it's a pretty boring chart. It doesn't even make it into the budget presentation until this year. And I circled the big circle here because obviously the green line is Parks and Rec. And that's a combination of that cooperation with the Ladue School District and also the opening of the new community center, but also this orange line that kind of gives us the big tail. And that's because it's other income, but that is the majority of that has to do with interest rates. If we remember that first A1 sheet, there's a healthy fund balance that was designed through that reserve policy that results in a pretty big bank account. And when interest rates come around and come up, you can take advantage of that. And that's what that tail is. So what does the reserve policy analysis look like? Well in compliance over the next 5 years. Again, we just changed it. Last year, we had this orange line on the far right was at 75%. So we'll say another $2 million higher and then some in order to meet that compliance. And we struggled with it for 2 or 3 years. And we struggled with it because of a couple reasons, but one, because we don't know what the future holds. We know a couple things. The thing about expenditures, we can fairly easily assume that they're going to increase, but with revenues, you can maybe assume they're going to increase, but by how much and where. And so those two things create a little bit of a trouble. And with the stabilization of those revenues and the sales tax funds, it was I felt, and also the council agreed through that the adoption of the new reserve policy that was okay. What does this allow us to do? This comes into play in a couple ways, and we'll see it here in our capital improvement fund, where it gets taxed heavily based on the condition of our roads and the use and the wish to leverage our funding sources in order to make them go a lot further. Because the general fund then becomes a little bit of a bank account to pay for some of those things that we wish we could do, but we're not sure because all the money kind of sits in many different places in different funds. I'm going to go back one. You can see this blue line at the top is the fund balance levels, and it does tail off there after the FY25 forecasted year. But what does it look like when you kind of put it in a chart? And it's a fairly stable looking chart. I'm very confident that myself or anybody that would come after me would be able to take care of a $400,000 deficit if that was a real issue come 5 years down the road. And so to me, this doesn't cause me any or much heartburn. We have enough time to react. And when we look at this with a $2.8 million reserve kind of excess of where we need to be, I think this is manageable. So I did highlight there what the policy is itself. 50% of current year, which is FY24 now expenditures, and 50% of FY28, which is the 5 years out projected expenditures. And that is bold because of it was 75% previously. And like I said, monitored monthly. These are things that we can keep a hold on monthly. And then when we come down to our budget presentation, hopefully we're not deviating too much from what those monthly reports are telling us to what we're asking for a budget as far as an ordinance is concerned. Anytime you do any reserve or any kind of forecasting, you do have to have some assumptions. So I like to put them here. Sales tax increases at 3%, property taxes at 2%, which is historically, I guess, for my history here, about inflation. And then permits revenue. It's based on an anticipated application for some of our major developments. And that creates some spikes here and there. But we do know the properties and the lots that we're expecting and when they're expecting to occur. Maybe they won't happen in the year we think, but they will happen probably over a 5-year period. That remainder category is projected to grow continue recovery in FY 2024 with growth at 1 to 2.5%. I will note here, what's not in here is probably most important, and there's no new developments. Inside of this budget itself, there is nothing for anything that would happen at Irvington Ram. There's nothing that would happen as far as sales tax development at Price Crossing, at Olive Crossing. We have people with really great ideas about what would happen, but there's a lot of hurdles in order to make those things happen. And the timing becomes the timing of it becomes problematic if you're going to put them in forecasts. Are there reasons to forecast that? Absolutely. But we don't enter them into our budgets here. And they don't seem to cause us much trouble. If we were pressed, we could maybe do those things. And that includes things with property taxes. So staffing and benefits remain the same as far as the expenditure assumptions. 4% increase in expenditures for all of our departments, which has been historically at least manageable at those levels. Maybe they've expanded a little bit more, but only because our revenues have grown. And then staffing, the planned staffing attrition with permitting and what does that mean? In FY26, when our developments are completed, there is right now a lowering of permit revenue and also a lowering of staffing through attrition, not through cuts itself. And that's planned in the forecast. Will it ever come to fruition? I'm not sure. Capital purchases, I won't, we've been through these a couple times. There are no changes here. Some of the bigger ticket items are, I guess, overall, this is pretty standard replacement for a fire department with the SCBA, or that self-contained breathing apparatus replacement. They come as a system at a big ticket item this year. As Councilmember Knox spoke to earlier, the license plate reading cameras, and then some of the patrol e-bicycles, those things are in there for the police department as planned. The bigger item in the public works, which I'm in the right column now, is the street projects and repairs with the Missouri American Water at $445,000. And that's well above where we've spent on street repairs on like what I would call the public streets of the city in quite some times. And that's would exclude anything that hasn't been matched by MoDOT for the bigger projects at Dealman and Old Bunham. So those pull fairly significantly, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit with the capital improvement plan. And then we do have a first here with the driveway and parking lots for the community center, and that's being paid for out of the general fund transfer, and that's a first for us there. The parks capital improvement still a little bit underdeveloped as we re-engage after the park improvements have been done. What are we going to do? Where's the funding source, and what's it going to look like? So that's the summary of the capital there. In addition, we talked about the Great Rivers Greenway, the Centennial Trail coming through. There's a couple other, pieces of that. And then we talked about the $1 million for the completion of Five Oaks on Warson and the Warson Park splash pad in the upper part of Warson Park as being inside of the budget this year. The engineering for the OMCI stormwater improvements, and that mostly has to do with the creek there behind Villa Park and up behind Tess Avenue and into Dolores. And then the preparation for the realignment of the intersection at Olive and North Price, which if we haven't had enough construction there over the last year or so, we're going to get it really fixed up. But that's a big project with ARPA funding, the development agreement through Balboa, which is the developer at Irvington Ram is part of that funding. And then of course the MoDOT cost share we talked about a couple months ago. So current year conclusion, another budget surplus, stable core revenues, which I would call in the sales taxes, property taxes. Higher interest rates, like I talked about, have been a big part of this. And then revenue from opening at Five Oaks on Warson. I did mention a couple of several of the firsts that we've had. This is the first year we've had salary increases in the public safety that are funded through a dedicated revenue source, which is the Public Safety Fund. And that's one of that fund has adequate reserves inside of it, and we go back and look if we need to. But that funds a lot of those salary increases. And then a transfer of $300,000 from the general fund for the lot resurfacing at Five Oaks. Okay, and so that's the leveraging of those funds from the dwindling that capital improvement fund balance that we'll see over the next couple of years, down to nearly zero because of all of the projects that we had planned and are in the middle of completing. So the reserve policy remains a monitoring tool, as well as those monthly financial reports in comparison to what we see in our budgets annually. That recommend approval of the bill as presented. More than happy to answer any questions, and a reminder that we are still in our public hearing if anybody else.
Mr. Mann, as usual, you always do a wonderful report and the reading is always pleasurable. This is the public hearing portion of the second reading of our budget. That means that before we close it, if anyone in the audience or if there's anyone online, Mr. Mann, would like to speak with regards to this, please come to the podium or raise your hand if there's anyone on Zoom. I don't see anyone on Zoom. Okay. Well, I find the budget interesting, I guess. All right. Do any of my fellow councilmen, before I do that, let me go ahead and say, I'm going to close the public hearing. And I'm going to go back into our regular council meeting. And now I will ask my fellow council members, does anybody have any follow-up or any questions with regards to what Mr. Mann presented? You have none? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I make a recommendation, or I make a motion that we pass Bill 3004 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded, please poll the council.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Chairman Waldman.
Yes.
Motion passed by action of the Olivet City Council. Bill number 3004 becomes ordinance number 2774.
Now I want to share now with my fellow council members one of the conversations we had at the Municipal League the other day, and that is sales tax revenues. Our fire tax, our CIDs, they are all funded through sales tax revenues. And the word is that our legislators will again attempt to seek removal of sales tax revenues from grocery stores. It did not pass last year. And we are ready to try to show again that such a move is fiscally irresponsible, but legislators do what they do best. As I said, they filed 2,332 bills, and a minutiae small percentage is what passed. So with that, I will ask City Clerk that we go on to item number 6.
Bill number 3005, an ordinance of the city of Olivet, Missouri, reaffirming the gross receipts tax to be imposed upon water companies conducting business within the city and matters related thereto. Second reading.
Mr. Mann.
Yes, thank you again. This is more of a housekeeping kind of thing in relation to the Public Services Commission allowing the water company to allow an increase in excess of 7%, which is the amount they're actually requesting is or was approved for is 30%. And so when that happens, there's a rollback in the tax rates according to state statutes unless city takes action that would lower the tax rates to so that the city would collect the same exact amount it had the previous 12 months for that year. And this retains those rates at 10%. Despite that increase, and that's sums up what I have there. Why we're here to propose this. We did have the court order itself that we received that triggered this.
Mr. Mann, I do have a question. Is this something we're gonna have to do every year? Or once we've done it, it's done?
I would suspect anytime that a Public Services Commission would allow any rates by a public utility in excess of 7%, we would be in this doing this action every time we would catch it.
Okay,
You know, this was a little bit of a one-off that we would catch it. We may wonder why we weren't collecting enough more money for over the next year if it hadn't been for a call from Mr. Martin.
all right, very good. And does any fellow council members have any questions with regards to this bill to Mr. Mann?
No.
Seeing none, I will call for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Bill 3005, an ordinance to maintain gross receipts tax rate imposed on water utilities in the city of Olivet at current rates.
Second.
There's been a first and second, please poll the council.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox.
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem Waldman.
Yes,
Motion passed by action of the Olivet City Council. Bill number 3005 becomes ordinance number 2775.
thank you very much. We'll head on to item number 9, bill number 3006, City Madam Clerk.
Bill number 3006 is an ordinance authorizing a special permit to McKnight Investors LLC to operate a beer, wine, and liquor store, NAICS 4453, not to exceed 7,000 square feet, to be known as the Wine Merchant on the property grounds addressed as 9200 Olive Boulevard, tenant space, suite 126, zoned COR, Commercial Office Retail District. First reading.
Mr. Mann?
Thank you. We do have, this is, was introduced by Carlos. We do have, our senior planner, Don Doty here that it was, can speak to it very briefly. Usually as a first reading, we don't, go into much more than that. I think we do have maybe some representatives here if they would, if you'd entertain them.
Ms. Doty, if you want to come up and present just a small summary to the council.
Yeah, I don't really have anything prepared other than to answer any questions. Been studying though, so go for it.
Does anybody have any questions with regard to this first read?
So if I'm looking for Merlot to pair with fish,
Say, don't pair Merlot with fish, please.
White wine's better with fish. All
Yeah,
right,
thank you
so-
for clarifying.
Yeah. All right. Well, I do have one question because I did read my packet. You were going to be closed before I even get back into my hood. You're closing at 5, you're closing at 6.
I think we're gonna.
If you could,
Oh,
Kid, if you could step
sorry.
up, that way
Yeah.
we'll get it in perpetuity and anybody else who wants to listen will know.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Main. I'm the owner of the Wine Merchant, soon to be formally in Clayton and looking to move to Olivet. Our plan is to extend our hours to about 8 p.m. Being in that very corporate business district of downtown Clayton, And then with the pandemic, we peeled our hours back. Classically, we would open at 10 a.m. and be open till 8 p.m. And I think with this new location, we'll have a return to those hours pretty quickly.
I then have a question back to Mr. Mann, our planner. With this potentially being a special use permit, with them identifying in the document that we read tonight, if they wanted to expand or change their hours, would they have to come back to us?
It would likely not be a matter for the special use permit. It would be, well,
So before, why are we here talking? Why is this an ordinance? Is maybe that's the starting point.
because it is not a permitted use by right under the land use designation. So COR or commercial or retail, commercial office retail.
Correct. And are there any other rules?
There
at
are.
this? There we go.
There are
Yes.
2 other rules that are specific to this property that meet the terms of the special use condition, and that's the cross-access easement and also having more than one road to for access. Sorry, I'm I'm getting my words mixed up. But it had to have more than one road other than Olive for egress in order to meet the special use permit requirements.
So,
Oh, and the square footage of the building had to be 80,000 square feet.
so the reason that I'm asking is because recently we had something where in our final decisions, it was adjustment with regard to the time recommendations. That's why I'm kind of connecting that question into this one. If when they come back, I'll get you, when they come back, will it be different than what I'm seeing on a document and a piece of paper right now? And I will let Mr. Yawitz come on up and address that curiosity
And I
question.
would also say that it's covered under the permit applications.
Can I just,
Sure, go ahead.
so the special use permit typically is something we can put hours in if we think the specific location requires it to be closed after a certain time or something like that, but it's not hours are not always part of a special use permit. That helps it all. Okay.
Sure. Greg Yowitz, 9200 Olive, owner of McKnight Investors, Price Crossing. So I was going to say that something that Mr. Carl said, which is often unless hours are only generally added into a special use when it's a regulatory restriction, number one. And number two, in the text of what you're reading, it says current hours of operation are as follows, subject to change based on new location. So it is my interpretation, which I would leave to the attorney or Mr. Martin to say, because I'm not an attorney, I just look like one on TV, that this is completely variable and should be. Obviously, he's not going to stay open till 1 o'clock in the morning, but yes, I would hope that they would not need to come back to add hours. I think the fluidity is in the document, but before the public hearing and second reading, I'd love for that to get clarified.
I don't want to speak for Paul, who has more, hands-on with this particular case, but no, generally, yeah, you're correct. Unless you guys are going to purposely stick something in there regarding what the hours are going to be or not going to be, that's generally not going to be something they need to come in and have, a second hearing on special use.
All right, thank you very much. I just really wanted that cleared up in the air, okay? All right,
Great. Any other questions for Jason or I while we're here?
anybody have any, go ahead.
I'm a beer guy.
Me too.
Are you gonna have beer?
Yeah. We have a full selection of wine, spirits, beers,
Right.
bourbon, very good selection of bourbon. And we also have a gourmet cheese and charcuterie department as well too. So
Very good.
all the good stuff. There you go. Right?
Okay, thank you. That's all I
So
have.
let me throw in liquor, tequila, okay? Let me at least throw another liquor in there.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. People want to drink it. We have it.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you
Thank
for wanting to come and invest in the city of Olivet. Much
We're
appreciated.
very excited. Very excited. We're looking at the second or third week of August, so it's approaching quickly. I got a lot of boxes to move.
Yes, you do.
Hey, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Item number 10, bill number 3007, City Madam Clerk.
Bill number 3007 is an ordinance authorizing a special permit to 1220 Price LLC to operate a 41,225 square foot private membership club to be known as Paddle and Pickle Club that features indoor paddle and pickleball courts, clubhouse, bar, and pro shop at the property grounds addressed as 1220 North Price Road, zoned LID Light Industrial District. First reading.
All right, this is for first reading, as city clerk mentioned. Does anybody have any questions with regard to this matter? Okay,
I-
Dawn, go ahead.
I do. Don, I know this is a large building. How much room are they taking up in this building? You know?
Only about 41,000 square feet. And it is a very large building. It's like 138, I believe. But the exact number is that 41,225. So it's not even half the building. I would imagine that it's the warehouse portion. And I believe that the plans detail which portion of the building and parking.
Okay, I'll wait to see that next meeting.
That is true, and at the PCDC meeting, the thought is if this is successful, then they would potentially want to expand even more within the building itself. So it's good for expansion.
Yeah, and Councilman Clark, pickleball is a new thing. Yeah, it's the new deal. Yeah.
I
It's
call it
like, it's
big
like,
girls ping pong.
Please speak into the microphone though.
So it's just another way to blow my knees out there. It sounds like.
Exactly. Except you don't have to move a lot because sometimes they're just standing there, but it's like a human size ping
It must
pong.
be easy if they got a bar there too, so.
It is going to be a private club, so yeah,
it's exciting.
it is. Better than the previous consideration in that building. Okay.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Dawn, thank you. We'll move to item number 11, resolution 2023-241, Madam City Clerk.
Resolution number 2023-241 is a resolution adopting the capital improvement plan for the city of Olivet for the 10 years ending June 30th, 2024 through June 30th, 2033.
It was an interesting document. Thank you, Mr. Mann. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. This is I think our 9th or 10th iteration of this document.
If I could stop you right there.
You bet.
In the document, it says it's the 8th.
8th? Okay. I stand corrected. It used to be 5 years and it is now 10. And it is used kind of for a planning purpose of looking further out. And we're not going to get terrible deep in here. I will give credit to our interim finance director, Tanya Welch. She completed this entirely herself and managed that. And so that's a huge help to me because it does take a while to put this together and wrangle people around about what's inside. All I will say before we get anything in the FY24 budget that was approved moments ago is here in FY24. There is no budget authority for anything past that. This is just a planning document. We do usually look at a couple of charts here, and this chart here is for the capital improvement fund. And how I had said that just in a couple of years we see this fund balance, which is it used to be behind, but now you can see it dwindles down by FY27, and that's a result of the dark green expenditure bar here being in excess of the revenue bar here. These revenues also include transfers from the other funds. So what the other thing I'll point out here is all public safety funding comes in here through as a revenue through a transfer. This is the entire only thing that pulls down a fund balance here is the streets maintenance department and streets capital. So just the repairing of streets and the maintenance of those streets is what pulls down these figures right here. Everything else is paid for by a dedicated sales tax when it comes to fire and police departments. That's important for a couple reasons, but it also makes us look at those other funds to make sure we can afford those capital expenditures as well. And so when we do look at that, you can see the draws heavily, what I'm looking at is this third one from the bottom, this net change. It draws heavily throughout most of these years. And the other thing to look at here is the significant amount of grants revenue that is being used inside of this. The majority of the grants here are for the repairs and reconstruction of streets. And this includes the Olive and North Price intersection we talked about. This also includes a full reconstruction of North Price Road from Olive south all the way to Delmar. And that's if anybody drives that, it's in also in pretty bad shape. And so that's the significant amounts of the pole that we see here. On top of that, the Missouri American Water, the leveraging of those funds for the water main replacements, the other half of the lane, the road, if you want to think of it that way. That's what's pulling for this year and into the next fiscal year, which is FY24, of a significant amounts of money that are required for those projects.
So before you go on, because Indian Meadows had tons, and I had to explain that they're not done yet.
Right.
That, that was just a basic covering. They needed to go back in, so it's sloppy laid just to cover it up temporarily. There's a lot in Indian Meadows. So is the entire street on both sides in every area in Indian Meadows going to be redone the way I saw what I saw on Engle?
I can't say that for sure. I knew you were going to ask that. I wish I would have followed up with Bruce. I do know the next route of this is Oliver up through where it turns on into Grandview. It's closed, but Grandview, and then heads east.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I grew up,
Yeah,
right?
that's the
where-
next section. I mean, that is the next section, and that is in the works. That is the significant portion of what we're here
Okay. Okay.
that we've approved in the budget for today.
Okay, and again, remind me, what is that monetary amount that we've approved that we're gonna pay for the street,
$445,000
All right.
is the amounts that we have to do for the capital parts of the streets.
Okay.
We do have other funds in here, the Fire Operations Fund and the Public Safety Fund, and these are both dedicated sales taxes for fire, and then we've said for public safety and dedicated it for police. Like I said, the transfer for the operations here is at 185. We would have saw that in the neighborhood of $80,000 or maybe a little bit less, $70,000 in past years. That funded the increases in the police department salaries. I would look for that to happen, be available in the Fire Operations Fund. And you can see that in the top part with the red outline. The fund balances just can't quite support it when we look into FY25 and FY26 with the replacement of a fire truck, the allocations for a fire truck, and then an ambulance shortly after that. And that's just the timing of when these things need to be replaced. If we look past those next years, you can definitely see in FY29 that things recover into a really, really positive amounts until we get in FY34 when the fire truck we just bought turns into 15 and 20, 15 years old, and that's slated for replacement again. So those funds would be then looked in to be able, the operational expenditures, we'd see some we see an operational transfers into the general fund for some of those increases. And that was previously funded 3 firefighter salaries, but then was moved into a capital fund. And over time could be stabilized, but we're still working toward that. I will point out that it's only a 0.25% sales tax versus the public safety fund is an allocation of, it's not a straight percentage, it's collected at the county level and then distributed to the cities. But it turns into about roughly 40% more than a 0.25% sales tax.
Darren, down in the public safety fund.
Yeah.
We have the loan repay.
Yeah,
And that's still going on.
it is. It will be going on until FY27. And we can see just above here, you can see where that money goes outflows and
Right.
into the public safety fund. And what that is it's a self-financed, if you would call it, internally financed funding of the fire truck. one of the things we could talk about is forgiving that. And that leaves a lot of pressure, if you will. It represents 30% of the expenditures and about 30% of the total revenue take inside of that fire operations fund. And so, but that's how we've arranged it. That was the agreement that we had, when we bought that fire truck and with the council. These are our rules, though we can change them. So that's the three major parts. The Stormwater Parks Fund, you can see here with the graph, and then here, I'll zoom out just a second, or just a little, we can get it both at the same time. The chart there is very healthy. Like I said before, it's when we look at this capital outlay portion, it's a very undeveloped plan as we kind of retool after the park improvements have been done, and then now revisit the individual parks master plans. And there is an individual parks master plan in the budget this year, and I don't know, I can't remember offhand which park it was. What we end up with is things like we've talked about tonight, is we improved the parks according to what was agreed, according to what the Prop C said. Now tell us what you'd like to do, and then we can work on a new thing. Maybe we need to do this a little quicker than a full master planning process, and maybe that particular issue isn't as warranted. But those are the kind of things we're re-asking and saying, what would you like to do with the park now? So that would be where the development of this capital outlay program would go. We can see the fund balances, and behind here are well in excess of and growing throughout the year. So that's what you get with an undeveloped. And then when you see a developed plan, then you get more of like what we see in the capital improvement fund, which is dwindling reserves. We adjust those things and find revenue sources and adjust priorities in order to pay for things, though. And that's what I'm here to do, and that's what we do. What you don't want to see is a fund balance at 0 this year. You want to see it maybe at 3 years out and be able to manage it over the next couple of years. The rest of this is summarizing in different ways. I'll only point out that each of this, this huge list has individual items behind it. And you can see when things are going to be replaced, when they're planned to be replaced, what we have. And this is what makes it a good planning tool and a good reference tool for history of what do we have, when did we buy it, and when are we going to replace it. So with that, the only other thing I'd have, I'm more than happy to answer any questions, but would be to approve the resolution.
I
And
just
so that's
asked
it.
a clarification get done between you and Tanya with regard to 8th iteration or 9th iteration, and just have it accurate in the document.
I think it's the 9th one,
Okay.
but maybe Tanya couldn't find the original one. It was the reason was the original one was adopted in October of the year that we put it in, and then every year after that was done in June. So if you can't find the first one, it would have been in October.
Does anyone have any questions, or are we ready for a reading of the resolution? I'll entertain the resolution.
Madam Pro Tem, I recommend we approve a resolution adopting the capital improvement plan for the city of Olivet for the 10 years ending June 30th, 2024 through June 30th, 2033.
Does motion and second, please poll the council on resolution number 241.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox.
Yes.
Councilmember Carl.
Yes.
Chairman Waldman.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay.
All right, again, that was really a very interesting document to read. Thank you all. Thank Tanya for on my behalf and the council's behalf. Item number 12, Madam Clerk, please proceed.
Request to encumber funds to future period.
Mr. Mann.
Thank you very much. One of our final housekeeping items for our budget is to request encumber funds to the future period. And what this means is these are past budget approvals that either are not complete or have been put on hold for some reason or another. And we does this as a piece of housekeeping for several years now. The list is quite a bit smaller. We're getting a little bit more stringent on what kind of things we would allow to go through. I will point out a couple things here. The street repairs and these pavings here, they're complete. We won't record this whole amount. What we don't know, we have to prepare this weeks in advance. We aren't sure what the weather's gonna hold. And the majority of a really good example here is right in the middle there, the Villa Park to Charles Gate, that sidewalk, that's all complete. We've paid the bill. We won't record this. It will no longer be encumbered. But several weeks ago, we weren't sure what the weather was gonna hold, whether the contractor was gonna meet their schedules. And so we request to encumber those things. All of the work at Angle is also on Angle and those other side streets off of there. This will come out of the $200,000 there along with the amounts that we received from Missouri American Water. So that probably won't be fully recorded, but we also don't have all the bills in quite yet. We just got finished up with it the last couple of days. So we'll ask to have all of that encumbered. The rest of these things have been ordered for FY23. The fire station alerting, I guess the fire station alerting is still in progress. There's a little bit of work to do, and that results in the 10,000. The breathing air compressor was originally at 55. We paid a bill in the last couple weeks that reduced it down to the 21,000 that's left. And that's some of the pieces in the installation. But there's a outstanding purchase order for that that's been approved by council. And same with the Durango and the upfit for that in the police department. It just hasn't come in yet. The remaining things are the comprehensive plan. That's what's remaining of $150,000 allocation from FY22, or sorry, $120,000. That is in addition to $150,000 and an ARPA allocation that will pay for that project through the end of its life. And then the community center opening and marketing plan have not been spent because the community center, it's not open yet. And we're just kicking off some of those kind of costs. So with that, just in 2 different funds this year and substantially smaller amounts than we've seen in the past couple of years.
So can I ask a question before I ask for any motion? So Darren, do you want this approved at the monetary figure you have on this document right now, even though you've just summarized?
Yes, because I don't know the amounts that I would ask to have them reduced to.
Okay, and on the one that's for the 90th anniversary event
Yeah.
/ community center, that 12 grand is the money from the 90th anniversary that we never spent because of the pandemic, correct?
We could not spend. No,
All
we
right.
didn't spend. We could not. Spend. Yeah, we had asked last year to have that reclassified for a community center opening.
Right,
and that's
12,000,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, thank you very much. I will entertain,
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve $346,974 in encumbrances of $53,312 in the general fund and $293,662 in the capital improvement fund.
Second,
moved in second, please poll the council.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox.
yes.
Councilmember Carl.
Yes.
Chairman Pro Tem Waldman,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you very much. We're at the second phase of hearing from citizens, and I have another card from Luetta Buckles. Miss Buckles.
Okay, Luetta Buckles, 9638 Huron Drive. There are a number of things that came to mind. Signs in the park concerning smoking. There are people who smoke cigarettes and there's people who smoke marijuana, and there's no signs there. So when we see them smoking, sometimes we say, there's no smoking in the park, and there were where are the signs? We don't see any signs. So who are you to mention that I can't smoke in the park? That's number one. Number two, dogs on leases. There are residents who walk their dogs, they're not on leases, and we've even had one of the residents to say, I'm cool with the policeman. Okay, so this particular resident walks his dog every morning about 6 something before he goes to work, and he walks his dog in the evening. He's never had his dog on a leash. And we've had problems with people who have had, the large dog, the pit bull dogs and things like that. So it's not right, you know, for some to have their dogs on leases and others say, oh, they know my dog and we're cool with the police. And the number 3 is being residents being driving hazard. I've talked to Paul here. On some streets, the residents don't cut their bushes back. And one of them is on Pioneer and Mojave. And if something's not done about that, it's going to be a terrible accident. It says yield, but their bushes are so far out that you can't see cars coming. So you got to be awfully careful. So if they could maybe ask them, I was told, well, that's nothing that we can do about it. You might want to take it up on your own and go and talk to them and ask them to do it. I went by there one day, nobody answered the door. So, but what I'm saying is it's an accident that's going to happen if something's not done about it. Because when the bushes are growing so far out into the streets that you can't see, even though you yield, you got to get way out in order to make your turn. And the other one is calling the policemen. When we call the police, some of them are nice, some of them are nasty. And if I call the police concerning the incident, or somebody call the police before I do, oh, we got a call about that already. We already know about that. And then I don't know what the problem is, but it takes the police quite a time to get there. And most of the time when they get there, the incident is already over.
If I could ask a question, is what you're defining as an attitude coming from the dispatcher you're talking with?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
dispatcher is not an Olivet function, but it is to be noted. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
from the dispatcher. As a matter of fact, I talked to the chief concerning that incident and they looked into it. And she had one of the other police officers to look into it. Very nasty, very curt, trying to explain something that's going on. And my thing was, you're here to help us, not to, come down on us, but that's happened from the dispatcher. And the last thing is, when will the streets in Indian Meadows subdivision be fixed? Because they're terrible. Whatever they've done there, they make it's really terrible. And then there, some of the places where they started, they haven't completed. So you got holes here and holes there. And those are the items that I wanted to address.
So I'm not sure whether you're asking on the streets, the same thing that Mr. Mann identified in summary when I asked the question where the water company was doing its work. Are you identifying other places in the subdivision where there are potholes?
Well, both, where the water company is doing the work, and also there are potholes and some potholes in the streets.
Okay, I would suggest that you identify those potholes and send an email to Bruce McGregor. He handles that. And let me summarize, and Mr. Mann could do a better job than me,
Okay.
but the water project is not done. So, I don't know if you saw the one street that they showed just got paved today on Engel. That was a street that also got the water project in their area, and their street looked exactly like ours do now. It is the hope that we will have the entire street paved on both sides, re-asphalted for smooth streets. When the water company is done, they're not done. So they're being a little sloppy in how they pour the stuff back because they got to tear it back out because they're not done.
Okay.
Okay, but guarantee you me, we'll be on top of it.
Okay, and I'm glad that you did get those pictures
Sure.
concerning, I knew you would get them because
Yes.
I knew someone would send them.
9:35 PM. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All
all.
right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All righty. We'll follow up with those issues, bushes and things that are out in the public, I know it's public safety. I don't know whether the city, to me, the city should sit there and say, hey, you need to trim it or you're in violation and get it done. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, we are now at item number 14, review and approval of the meeting minutes. I didn't see anything when I reviewed the minutes.
I didn't either. Nor did I.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Jennifer's first time, so did a great job.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the city council minutes from June 13th, 2023, as written. Second.
Moved and seconded, please poll the council.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox.
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
Chairman Waldman,
Yes,
motion passed.
thank you very much. We are at item 15, which is the city attorney's report.
I don't have anything other than thank you for having me sit in with you guys this evening. I was speaking with Darren. Are we doing a close?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
will entertain a motion for going into closed session. Greg, it's gonna be point 1 and point 12.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion, we go into closed session for revised Missouri statute 610-022.
021.
021, 10 and 1 and 12. Second.
Moved and seconded to go into executive session. Please do a verbal roll call of council.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Knox,
Yes.
Councilmember Carl,
Yes.
motion passed.
Yes. You need to ask me, Denise. For the record, Denise, you have to ask me for my vote. Okay, I didn't hear you call me. Okay. I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion. Let's go.
You'd have to go outside.
So they get for wearing shorts. All right, we're back from executive session. A vote was taken. I will entertain a motion. Oops. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
No, gotta make the motion first.
Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion, second, meeting adjourned.